Hello and welcome to Oddball Reviews. I'm your host, LW Greenwood, and today we're going to be going over He Who Fights with Monsters. If you haven't heard of it, it's another book off of Royal Road. They've published 10 books at this point. It's a very long series, and much like a lot of the other books on Royal Road, it's a serialized weekly, which means that it essentially is never ending. Like it could continue indefinitely, as far as we know. This is actually almost a point in its out of its favor because it doesn't have any end in sight. There's no goal we're working towards, but be that as it may, it's still a very good story. As I said, there's 10 books, and I'll be going over the first three in this one. That's what I call the would call the Greenstone arc. Essentially, the story goes that our protagonist, Jason Asano, ends up being sucked into this other world. We later find out it's called Palimastus, but anyway, he's finds himself in the midst of a cannibal cult. And anyway, he manages to save himself along with three other people, all while not having powers. He ends up finding out that this world has magic and all of this stuff. And he makes friends with these people who he saved. Even though they were much more powerful, he's the one who saves them through circumstance. And they're extremely appreciative. So they help to raise him up and give him the powerful abilities. And then it goes from there. Essentially, his journey to becoming extremely powerful. Almost like a cultivation novel, but not quite. It's definitely very unique magic system. Um, but much like a lot of lit RPGs, it ends up being this just collection of powers. And I think this guy does it a lot better than a lot of stories because most stories like this, they don't have a cap to the powers somebody can have, whereas this one does. Essentially, he can get I think it's four essences and then five abilities out of each of those essences, which essentially amounts to he's got 20 abilities. And those 20 abilities can all grow in power, but he can't get more of them. Though being a lit RPG protagonist, he does actually manage to get more powers, which they're unusual and definitely out of the ordinary for this world. But that actually happens more later. In the first arc, it is mostly about those powers that he gets and training them up and becoming extremely powerful. It's called He Who Fights with Monsters because in this world, they have random monsters pop up, and the Adventure Guild has to go fight them and get rid of them before they become real issues. And so that's what he does is he goes on this sort of training arc, and he makes friends more along his power level because the three that he came with are well above him. So he makes a team out of people who are much closer to his level. But then, of course, he ends up being the character that he is, pissing off a lot of people who are very much more powerful than him. But he also makes a lot of allies that are very much more powerful than him. It's one of the most interesting things about this is that Jason Asano himself is very almost flippant with power. He's like he doesn't care and treats every character as though they're just normal people and even gods and stuff. He will just say good day to gods and have a normal conversation with them, despite the fact that his soul is being crushed by their aura and all this stuff. And it's extremely weird to the people who live there, but it's fun to watch. It's one of the best parts of the book. Uh, One of the biggest problems I have with this book is actually the fact that the powers themselves. First of all, there's so many of them. Each character has 20 powers, so that's a lot to keep track of. And I don't know if he has all of them in the main group mapped out, but he definitely has Jason's mapped out. And it's very complicated system. And it almost comes to the point where he has too many tools in his toolbox. In fact, every character has too many tools in their toolbox, and they can use so many tools to do whatever the heck that they want. And it's hard to keep track of as a reader. It's uh, also like every ability has a description attached to it, what it does, how it does, whether it can, or what its likeliness of working is, and blah blah blah. It's just statistics, statistics. That's lit RPGs for you. They just have so many statistics, and in this case, it actually hurts the story a lot. It makes the battles extremely boring because you constantly have these interruptions of, oh, he's using this ability, so we're going to give you a list of everything that it can do. It might not be so bad if you were reading it, but I like to listen to it on Audible. So if you were reading it, you could just skip over that part, but in Audible you can't, and so you have to listen to an ability's full description every single time it comes up. This does actually get better later parts of the book. I think he got a little pushback about, having so much in the battle scenes. But for the first three, there's definitely a lot of descriptions of these things. It's almost like, oh, we're using this ability again. I don't want you to forget what it does, so I'm going to throw in the whole description again. It also feels a little bit like, hey, I need some more word count. So I'm going to throw all of these descriptions in. That'll give me another, 10,000 words throughout the book. And it does get a bit annoying, which, like I said, almost makes the battles boring because they're more like an analyst of every move that's being made. It's almost like you're looking at the backlogs of a gaming battle instead of, an actual description of a battle or a climactic battle in a book, which is why one of the reasons I kind of almost tune out every time a battle is happening. And that, to me, in this book is not what interests me. I don't care about him fighting monsters and using his special powers or even gaining more powers. I don't care about any of that. What does interest me, though, is the politics. I really like the politics in this book, especially the way Jason Asano doesn't care about authority at all and will talk to gold rankers, even though he's an iron ranker, and most iron rankers would be unable to even speak around someone that powerful. It is one of those classic I don't know, medieval worlds where peasants don't ever associate with the powerful people. And then Jason comes along and just breaks that completely. And he does it with gods. He does it with astral beings who are above gods. He's very interesting character in and of himself. And I think that's actually what makes this story so much better than most of its sort. Otherwise, the writing style is actually pretty good. I do like the writing itself. It's actually better than some of these Royal Road type serializations because it does feel like there is a plan well ahead of time. It's not like some of them where it almost feels like the author wrote it for that week and didn't really have a plan further on. It doesn't feel like he's adding too much. What do you call it? Filler. Instead, it feels like he has this plan that extends throughout the entire arc, instead of a plan that only goes maybe a few dozen chapters ahead and throws in a bunch of filler just to keep people interested. It's definitely not, though, like a regular novel where somebody may have had years to work on it and has a whole plan for the entire series and has a direction. It does feel a little like there is a direction it's going, but where it could end up could be off somewhere strange. It does eventually uh, completes, let's call it, the builder arc and has started going somewhere else, but I'm not sure exactly where it's going after that. Anyway, point though is that it's definitely better planned out than some of these stories. Um, and I'm back a whole day later. Anyway, let's jump right into the weirdness scale. I'd give this a good 6 out of 10. It's not that weird. Uh, Five being maybe average. I'd call Lord of the Rings maybe a five. So this really isn't that high. Most of its weirdness is down to Jason Asano himself and the way he treats other people, the way he acts around people who are significantly more powerful than him. He just treats everybody the same, no matter what. And it's hard to describe without reading the book, but he's very, very flippant with other people. The magic system is pretty unique, but I wouldn't say it's that unique. It is a little bit better than a lot of the lit RPG series, but that doesn't make it any more weird. I do really like how the monsters work in this world. A lot of lit RPGs come up with some excuse as to why monsters exist. In this one, essentially, the magic accumulates and eventually creates a monster that also eventually goes berserk and starts killing everything in sight. So the adventurers have to go out and kill them. So it's pretty unique, but not that weird in any way. So again, all of the weirdness is mostly down to Jason Asano himself, the main character. As far as the overall, I would probably give this a 7 out of 10. It is definitely good. I definitely enjoyed it. It's not my favorite, especially in this next arc. But during this portion of it, I would definitely give it a 7.5, probably even. But it's not my favorite by any means. So, anyway, do I recommend it? Yes, go ahead and read it. It's definitely good, especially if you want a lot of book to read because there's 10 books out there and they're all fairly long. Anyway, given that,